Cool. So, hello everyone. Before starting, I want to try something. I want to make the people. I want to make the people that is outside feel that they are missing something big. So, what I will ask you is, if at the count of 3 you can scream, shout, clap, I don't know, celebrate whatever you want, make some noise. So the people is coming to the room, and we have a full room here. So, do you agree? Are we okay? Cool. So, 1, 2, 3. Two people. Okay, cool. Amazing. Okay, so we are talking about the edge today. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Facundo Giuliani. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. You can follow me on Twitter, Facundo JSWORLD. I'm a solutions engineer manager at Storyblok. Storyblok is a headless content management system that, we can talk about that later, or you can find our booth outside. I'm also one of the organizers of React Buenos Aires, the biggest React developer community in Argentina. So if you are around, come and say hi, because we are organizing monthly meetups there. I'm also one of the organizers of Dev Summit Art, or Argentina. That's another developer community. And I was planning to name this talk "Living on the Edge." Do you know what is this? Aerosmith song? You recognize it? No. Okay, cool. Do you know who they are? No. Yeah? The guy from the right is called? Okay, yeah, I understand why when I proposed a talk to other conferences, it was not successful. The guy is The Edge, the guitar player from U2. But I thought, or I saw that had a lot of 90s vibes. But you know what else has a 90s vibe? This website, spacejam.com. If you go and visit that website, that's still alive. This is not the LeBron James version. Michael Jordan's like 90s, The cool thing, besides that this website is still up and running, this website, if you visit it, basically what you are doing is requesting the web page to a web server, which is a computer, and the computer sends the files to you, and you load them in your browser, and ta-da. That's how the websites worked in the 90s, and they still work like that. They are actual computers, like the laptops that you have right now. Actually, this is a real picture from a web server from Europe, from the first web servers that we had when internet was created. And basically, that's how the internet works. You request something to another computer, and the other computer sends that to you, as easy as it is. But it has some issues, let's say, in that way. The thing is, what happens when you have multiple people requesting the same resources or different resources to the same computer at the same time? You can imagine that you will have an overloaded computer. And not only that, what happens when the computer is located in a particular place of the world and you live very far from there? It will take a lot of time to load or to request that information and get it back to you on your browser. Imagine that I live in Argentina. Whenever I'm sending a request that I want to load a page that is hosted on a web server in Miami, it doesn't take like 9 hours like my flight took to come to here, but kind of, you get the idea. Like it will take more time than the time that it takes for me to browse a website where the web server is way closer to my home. So with this idea in mind, or considering these issues, let's say, a new concept was developed by smart people some years ago, which is the Content Delivery Network. Content Delivery Network is a group of geographically distributed servers with the idea of speeding up the delivery of web content to different users closer to they are. So a CDN is a network of computers that are delivering static assets as files, as JavaScript files, CSS files, images, HTML files. So this network has servers all around the world. So whenever you are requesting the resources, or you want to load a web page to this network, your request will travel to the closest node of this network, and you will get the information from there. These web servers are are improved to deliver faster the content that they are managing, which is, again, these assets that we are managing and these files, so you can get them faster, more performant, and actually you are reducing the bandwidth that is needed because all the requests, instead of going to the same web server, you have them distributed on different servers across the globe. You also will have better performance because of this, and I mean, what we discussed about the distance that the request has to travel, and also will be more secure because the information that you are getting is not coming from the computer that is plugged, and if you unplug it, your website is dead, as we saw on the first example, but you will have the same content replicated in different places of the world. This is not a paid advertisement, but it can be if I get the proper benefits, let's say. Juguetes Perdidos is I mean, a craft beer from Argentina. From my point of view, the best beer that we have in our country. If you are around, I can take you to the brewery. It's amazing. They do some barrel-aged beers that they are super strong, but it's really interesting. I really love them. And I have a friend, I mean, as I said, I live in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and the brewery is there, very close to my house, by the way, like 15 minutes by car. I have a friend, Pablo. He moved to the beautiful city of Barcelona, but Barcelona doesn't have Juguetes Perdidos. That's the thing. And he missed the best beer in the world. The guys from Juguetes Perdidos, what they did, they created a distribution network in Spain, so you can go to several places in Spain, Barcelona, between those places, and you can get the Juguetes Perdidos beer. So basically, you have to think about this analogy. The beer is being brewed in Argentina, is being transferred to Spain, and you can go to Spain and get the beer. We mentioned the static content that the CDNs have. What's the analogy? The analogy basically is that, as I said, the CDN has different nodes around the globe, and you go to the node and you get the content from there. But what's the thing? The thing is, as I mentioned before, they are static assets. That means that if I request something that is not generated or that is dynamic, that node that I'm requesting the content to, they won't be allowed to send the information to me. So we need to go through a static site generation process. Probably if you use a framework like Gatsby, Next.js, 11t in the past, or I mean, those frameworks offer the possibility of generating content statically, or even the JAMstack concept that was developed a few years ago, like generating static content that you can distribute across the globe using CDNs. You are probably familiar with this if you use this technique in the past. You can also see, or you can also identify the issue, and the issue is that the CDNs deliver static content. So what happens when I want to deliver content that was not previously generated, or the static assets that are conforming, let's say, my website were not previously generated? So what happens is that your request travel to the origin server, which is the dynamic server or the data center that is generating the static assets that are after, after they are generated, they are, distributed to the different nodes of the network, cached and improved and everything to be ready for you to consume them. So if you are requesting something, a file or some content that was not previously generated, your request has to travel to the origin server again, and it will be like taking a plane to Buenos Aires to get the beer from Juguetes Perdidos instead of going to the distribution center that I mentioned before. With this, again, issue or problem in mind, we are introducing the concept that I wanted to introduce, which is the edge, something that was developed or created, let's say, a few years ago. And the edge is basically a distributed network or architecture, or again, a network of web servers where the client data is processed as close as the origination source. Sorry, I'm not native English. You know, these words are like, man. So the source as possible. So as I mentioned, we have a request coming from a user or a client. They want something that was not previously generated. We have to somehow process that request and data. We are trying to do that as close as possible to where the request is coming from. So as you can see, with the edge, now we have the same possibilities that we have with the CDN, I mean, a network, but instead of having these nodes that are distributing static content, we also have computers that are, I mean, they have the capability of analyzing the data and generating dynamic content or dynamic information based on the requests that our users are sending. As I said, this is not a paid advertisement, but it can be if I get the proper benefits. As you can see, I like beer. Like I like to drink beer. Okay, this is another example or another analogy. We have Heineken. I imagine that you know this brand, right? I mean, wherever you are or you live, you have Heineken on your supermarket. So Heineken, probably you already know this, but the Heineken that you buy in your country was not produced or manufactured in Amsterdam, where the original brewery is. Heineken sends the receipt to different countries or different places in the world. They create the beer there, and you get the beer from the closer or closest, let's say, brewery that is following the Heineken receipt from your house or your country. So for instance, in Argentina, we are producing Heineken, so the Heineken that I drink in Argentina is not the same Heineken, or it's not technically the same Heineken that I'm drinking in Amsterdam if I visit the brewery. So we are brewing Heineken in different parts of the world. You got the analogy now. Okay, so, sorry, just a joke, but yeah, just wanted to mention that, again, we are, with the edge, we are producing content, we are like analyzing or evaluating the request in different parts of the world and in different locations of our network, let's say, instead of depending on only one origin server that is generating the content, the HTML content, or the static files that we are going to use for our website. One thing that I wanted to mention, the edge is not exactly the same as serverless. Probably if you are familiar with the concept of serverless, you can link those concepts. But in this case, it's like, I mean, when you are creating a serverless function, let's say, you have to somehow define in which region of the world that serverless function is going to run. So in this case, the edge would be like a combination between a CDN, because of the different nodes of the network that we have and the availability across the globe, and a serverless function because, again, you are running server code and server logic on different places of the world without having to maintain a web server or having a DevOps that is taking care of those tasks and etc. What are some of the benefits that we can get from the edge network? Let's say we will have better performance as we do with the CDNs. We will have more security because, again, we are not hitting our web server or our origin server with all the requests, and so we don't know which is the origin server, let's say. We will have some real-time insights based on the processing of the data from the users and customers. And then it will be easy to scale because it's basically deploying a function to the edge and having it on different places of the world available to run and to analyze the requests that are coming to our application or website. Some of the use cases that we can implement using the edge, or that the edge is ideal for, are personalization. Let's say that we want to analyze certain aspects of the visitor of our website, and based on that we want to deliver certain content or the other. That evaluation can be done on the edge. We can apply geolocation. Let's say that, I mean, something that it happens very frequently to me is that I go to a website, let's say Amazon.com, I browse and I said like, I don't know, in December, oh no, this is a nice code for you. And in December in Argentina, it's hot as super hot, let's say. So, I mean, with geolocation, you can implement some personalization based on where the person is browsing from. You can implement techniques of A/B testing, try different landing pages for your website or different strategies that you are trying to implement. And you can implement security protocols. You can analyze the authentication and authorization of your users closer, again, to the visitor that is going to your website. As this is a React conference, while this concept is kind of related to the hosting providers that we are using, we need a framework that support that functionality. I will mention a couple of them, probably pretty popular. One of them is Next.js. Next.js brings us the possibility of using the edge or getting the advantages of the edge using edge functions, which are serverless scripts that execute server-side rendering code and can be distributed on different regions. Again, as I said, the serverless probably you have to pick a particular region to run the code. With the edge, you can run the code on different regions based on where the people is browsing from. One thing to keep in mind is that the edge runtime, which is what Vercel uses to manage these edge functions, is built on top of, the edge runtime is used by the edge functions, and this edge runtime is built on top of the V8 engine, which is following the web standard APIs, that has a limit number of APIs that you can use. So if you are creating an application that is running server code, you probably won't have the same functionalities or the same possibilities than running a Node.js server. So that's something that you have to consider. The documentation on the website is clear on what's supported and what is not. So you can take a look about that. To show you an example, this is how an edge function looks like using Next.js and deploying to Vercel. You can evaluate the request coming from a user, and based on that, you can execute a particular code. In this case, it's just saying hello. But you can, for instance, receive some information from the request, like a user ID, and you can get information related to that user. You can execute that code, again, without having to maintain a proper web server and running on different regions of the world. Another concept that Next.js introduces the middleware. The middleware is basically an intermediate tier that executes custom logic before every request is processed. So you will get all the requests coming to your server. Let's say whenever a request is sent to the server, that request will be evaluated, and based on the logic that you are defining, you can do one thing or the other. So this is an example on how a middleware can be configured using Next.js. So this is one of the examples that I was mentioning before about security and authorization. You can get certain information from the user, and based on that information, you can confirm if that user is subscribed or not, and you can show some gated content. You can run this code, again, over the Edge platform, and you don't need to set up a proper web server to run this, and you will run this evaluation whenever a new request is hitting your server. This is another example, another middleware that we are implementing some kind of an A/B testing logic. So if a certain feature flag that we are setting on the client side, let's say on the browser, a cookie or a certain logic that we are executing, if that is true, is positive, we are showing a particular page. If not, we show the regular page that we want. So in that way, we can do an evaluation of different types of the content that we want to deliver to the users. The other React-based framework that I was planning to mention is Remix. This is code that was created for a Remix route, where you can create a route that that runs for the request for a particular URL and a page handler, let's say. In this particular case, this is a to-do list. So you can see a list of to-dos that was previously created, or you have the possibility of creating one. This is the code that will run on the client side. If you're working on React, you're pretty familiar with this notation probably. But then we have a server-side code that can be executed, some actions that Remix offer us or provide us. One is, the function with the name action, which means that you can execute a code on the server and do a certain action or task. In this case, we are using the action function to create the new to-dos. And then we have the loader functions that will help you to load information and content that you are going to use on your page. So these two screenshots that I showed are related to the same route, let's say, that we are managing on a Remix page. Remix was created as they say that it's an edge-first framework, and they are using what they call the next generation edge, which is setting different levels of dynamism on a per route basis. So you can define per page if you want to run on the Edge runtime or on a Node.js server, in the case that you need some APIs or some functionalities that the Edge runtime is not supporting, or if you want to use a different runtime that, like Dino. I mean, depending on what type of logic are you going to execute on the server, you can evaluate which runtime you want to use for that particular route. Speaking about Remix, as I said before, the possibilities that you will have to manage the Edge runtime or Edge functions, let's say, will depend on the hosting provider that you are using to host your application. I mean, you can create a Remix website and you can host it on Vercel, for instance, and Vercel will offer you a library with functionalities to manage the Edge functionality on your Remix website. And the same will happen with different hosting providers that are available on the market. And Netlify is another provider. They have what they call the Edge functions. In this case, instead of having the Edge runtime, Netlify is based on the Dino runtime. So that's something that you have to consider at the moment of coding your website or your Edge functions, let's say. We have Cloudflare. Cloudflare have the workers. This is the concept that Netlify and Vercel kind of used at the moment of creating the new Edge concept. So they based on the workers that Cloudflare kind of previously developed. So that's something that you can also evaluate and take a look at. And I wanted to also mention Fly.io. They are introducing another concept, which is a platform as a service, where you can run full stack applications with even a database. This is kind of even edgier than the Edge, let's say, because that's something that you need to evaluate. I mean, a database is managing critical information, so you have to evaluate if your use case will be supported by a platform like this. Of course, I mean, the same with the Edge, like you need to evaluate what are the use cases that you are going to support with your website, with your platform, to see if the Edge provides you the functionalities that you are looking for and the use cases that you are going to experiment. It's not that you can implement anything on the Edge and it's going to work magically for any use case or any project. But from my point of view, the Edge is here. It's the future. It's something that we have to keep an eye on. It's something that we have to continue seeing how it evolves, how we can use it for our web projects, how it can help us to make our web projects more performant, easier to deploy, better for the end user. At the end of the day, that's what we are trying to create, right? A great experience for our users, and they don't really know what we are using in the background. So that's something that I'm kind of looking forward to see how the Edge evolves and how it helps us to create better projects in the future. So from my point of view, the Edge is here because, as we can see, frameworks, hosting providers, they are already supporting the Edge, but it's also the future because we can see that more possibilities will appear. Speaking about the Edge is here and the present, if you want to know how the other Edge is in the present, he's pretty old, but he's still rocking. So I encourage you to go to a U2 concert if you have the chance. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.